Hi there.
Okay, so the first one, uh, and I think we might have done this one, but my partner is unable to show up for me because when he is confronted with an issue, he talks about suicide. Did we answer that one?
No.
Let's talk about that.
Um, s- is that all it said?
Yes, that was the whole question.
So what is happening with him is he's going into shame. And it sounds like he is not managing his shame very well. And so he goes to that suicidal ideation, um, which is, as a therapist, that's worrisome for me. Um, it means that he needs to learn how to deal with the shame. He probably needs to go to a therapist who can work through developing some shame resilience and learning some coping strategies, and also to explore what's around the suicidal ideation. A lot of times when people are feeling suicidal, it's not that they actually want to die, it's that they want the pain to end. They're tired of feeling the pain and they feel hopeless that it's ever going to go away. And so being able to give them some strategies and learning what's driving that and how we could resolve that, I would think would be really helpful. But I can understand as a partner that would be really, it would be challenging because there's probably a fear of, if I bring it up, that's where he's going to go. And yet you need to have a voice. So um, I don't always recommend couples counseling right away when we're dealing with this, but that might also be something that would help, is how do I tell you what I'm feeling without you going to that place, and maybe having somebody help guide that as well. But it sounds like he needs to, hopefully he is with a therapist, but if he's not, it sounds like he really needs to do some work around that.
Yeah, well, and I'm not minimizing. I mean, suicide. I mean, it's like if he is really suicidal, ER, call 911. The challenge for me is this is a really effective mechanism for pushing someone away. You
Right.
bring up something difficult, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to start talking about that, and it shuts all of the conversation down. So when you're talking about, yeah, maybe some couples counseling, or around this is like, how do we have a conversation without you shutting down and disappearing? Because otherwise it's, the coupleship is stuck because she's stuck not being able to bring up anything real and meaningful that will help the relationship, because he's, I mean, that's a big time, like, I'm going to kill myself. I mean, that isn't just like, I'm mad at you, you
Yeah.
know?
It can be very much manipulative. And so that's the challenge, right? So
Okay, so the next one, betrayed partner here. How do I tell if my shame is outsized in relation to my partner's actions? How do I remove the unwanted and unwarranted shame that covers me like a blanket at all times?
So I don't know how you would measure that it's outsized compared to somebody else. Shame, that's one of the things that shame does, is it loves to compare things. What I'm hearing is that it's like, um, how do I seek clarity with the shame? And so the way that I help people do that is figuring out, well, which of the shadows of shame is talking to you and what are they saying? Why are they there? So they're usually, shame is, sounds so counterintuitive, but shame is trying to protect you from pain. It never works that way. So the very fact that you're feeling shame means that you're also feeling pain. And that you don't know how to, either you don't know how to vocalize that, or you haven't been able to be heard when you vocalize that. And so shame is showing up. So part of that is just being able to recognize, okay, regardless of how big it is, what is it saying? What is the shame saying to me? What is the truth? And how do I find the truth rather than continuing to agree with the messages of shame? And when we get into that place of truth, it really can lighten things up and help us make clearer and better choices for ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm always so saddened when a partner is struggling with shame. Like, it isn't even their behavior. Now, I think, as you just mentioned, shame um it's trying to protect, but it's giving the wrong, it's doing it the wrong way.
Right.
So I don't even think it's helpful for addicts. So when a partner is taking on that, so when I read my shame is outsized, your shame is completely outsized, because it's, you're hurt, absolutely, but taking on shame, is just, it adds to the burden, for partners. So I love that you're like, okay, what messages of shame, what voice is in there, what's it trying to do for you, and how can we do it differently so that it isn't a shame voice. So okay, so the next question, we got two more. Can you share some strategies for the spouse of an SA husband to deal with the shame of staying with the SA who has acted out in devastating ways? I'm having a hard time reconciling my values with his behavior. He is 6 months sober. Oh shoot, sorry. He is 6 months sober, just truly diving into his recovery. So the partner's saying, I'm feeling shame of staying with this person who has done such devastating things. How do I deal with that?
So Rob has a book on codependence, and Rob and Kim just came out with a workbook on codependence. So the whole part of codependence is helping take some of the shame away from caring for and loving your partner, and it's a different work than codependency, which says that there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you for wanting to stay. So the shame around that is, well, what do you end up believing? And this is a question that I ask oftentimes when I'm working with the partners. So your husband or your wife or whoever did this behavior. What does that say about you as a person? And oftentimes it says, I'm I'm defective. I'm not enough. I'm bad. I wasn't pretty enough or whatever. Those are all shame-based statements. And then we try to help them come to a sense of, well, is it true? And no, it actually doesn't say anything about you as a person. It says everything about what's going on with them. So one of those steps is separating their behavior from your interpretation of your worth. Once you've been able to do that, and you're able to really check in with you, and I'm enough, and I matter, and I'm worthy of love and belonging. I'm worthy of someone being honest and having integrity. Then you're in a better place to be able to make the decision that's in your best interest and in the best interest of the people that you love, because it's not coming from a shame place. It's coming from a value and a light place. And it may be that I can see his light and his goodness, and I'm can see that he's working in recovery, and I'm willing to stick with him and support him. And it may be that is actually a behavior that is non-negotiable for me, and I can't do that. And being able to, in that truthful place, be able to honor that. So we have to help you separate what are the messages of shame. Is the judge saying, well, you should stay with him? If the politician's saying, well, what is everybody gonna think if you leave? Those figuring out which shadows are talking, and then really cut through that with the truth about who you are, and that will guide you in making the decision that is best for you.
So the next one is challenging. It's longer, but I'm going to read it. My husband swears he is sober, but refuses any recovery programs. I've finally gotten him to counseling after 2 years. I have no idea how often he has gone, but maybe 2 times. He finally threw out at me that this new counselor has said he has so much shame packed in his head, body, etc. Is it possible that he will always hang on to this shame regardless of the cost to his life? Just your opinion. Why do they choose this option, and how often do you see this? He won't do any psych testing either. So, got it?
Mm-hmm. Uh,
Okay.
so similar to, so an alcoholic could not be drinking and still very much engaging in addictive behaviors. So sobriety is a measure, but it isn't the only measure for somebody being in recovery. Other measures are you being honest? Are you telling the truth? Are you going where you say you're going to go when you say you're going to go? Are you kinder? Are you more respectful? There's lots of things that you can look at besides whether or not the person's acting out. That is a measure. It's interesting that the therapist said he has so much shame packed in there. I wouldn't do this job if I didn't believe that we could become shame resilient. The truth is we all battle shame. Every one of us is battling shame. And so I do believe that there are strategies and tools that can help break that shame apart and help a person experience freedom from all those messages that basically say, I'm unworthy of love and belonging. Even Brene Brown, who is one of the experts on shame, has been studying shame for 30 years, says that when she discovered that she was battling shame, it took her a year. She said it was a street fight to be able to come through and recognize her own worth and push back on that shame that she was dealing with. So even really healthy people are battling shame. So the fact that he heard that is awesome. It sounds like the therapist knows what they're talking about, and hopefully he's going to be willing to stick with it and start breaking that shame apart so that he can see his worth and then show up the way he wants to in the relationship.
Yeah, so I have I like little quotes and things, and I have one that shows a bicycle stuck in the mud, and it says sometimes when people are stuck, it's because they choose to, and you choose to be. They would rather stay stuck, and like how sad for him that I would rather stay stuck in this shame rather than dealing with it and be free of it. And it's not 100% free, and what Troy was talking about, it's a street fight, but like, why would he not perceive that he's worth the fight, and your relationship, I mean, all of those things. But he's not doing the work. You've been clear about that. He refuses to do any recovery program. He's gone to a counselor a couple times after 2 years. So he's unfortunately sounding like one that prefers to stay stuck. So I'm going to go back to, what do you need to do so that his being stuck in his shame and unwilling to do the work? And I'd say he's abstinent. I mean, I see abstinence as, like Troy said, just not drinking is abstinence. It's not sober or recovery. So he's just not acting out. That's like I think that's the worst place to be, because you're like not acting out, but you're also not able to go back to your maladaptive coping mechanism. So it's this horrible place, like, that I can't act out, but I'm also not, I don't have any tools to use to do life differently. So I'm really sorry that he's choosing that, and clearly it's a choice, because like I mentioned, Troy has every Friday he does a finding peace that talks about these shame voices on sex and relationship healing for guys. Like, it's free. And then he also does a work group, that's on seeking integrity. I mean, we have resources that talk about these specific issues, and just being willing to dip your toe in, gosh, to have a little bit of that shame removed. Somebody mentioned earlier in that the blanket and the weight, it's like those weighted blankets, but it's not the comforting kind. It's just carrying around a brick wall of blanket. You don't have to, you don't have to be chained to that. You can choose to. So, but I mean, recovery, like, I mean, I'm really clear, my recovery is a choice. I have to choose to do the recovery journey, and I choose it on a daily basis. And wow, the benefits of doing that are so worth it. So,
Mm.
okay. Okay, now we've got some new questions. So that was all the leftovers from last time. So the first one is, I learned about John Bradshaw in one of my groups yesterday. I'm excited on the things he says about accessing your inner child. What is your take on his work? Well, I actually met John Bradshaw multiple times. Like I know him, but I knew him before. He was funny, and just like he was just crazy. But his work was the precursor to Brene Brown's, which you just mentioned. She learned a lot from him. So, what are your thoughts, Troy?
Absolutely. I love John Bradshaw, and he talks a lot about shame, and taking care of that inner child, and the family dynamics that lead up to addiction. Uh, Beautiful man, beautiful message. So I love it. I think
Yeah, I've
you
got
wouldn't go wrong by reading.
multiple of his. Yeah, I've got multiple of his books, and yeah, John Bradshaw Unfiltered is a really interesting thing. Whew. Okay. My spouse gets very defensive when I bring up something negative. He has a tendency to shift anything back to sex. Basically, if I have something negative to say, it's because I want to make him angry to avoid having sex with him. He focuses on how I say something instead of what I actually say. Any suggestions on how to have negative conversations without triggering him?
Well, I'm hearing sex is really important to the guy, so I'm assuming he's a sex addict. Uh, One of the core beliefs that sex addicts have is that life without sex is impossible. And so there's a huge fear, I think, for a lot of guys that that aspect of their life is going to be taken away. The irony is that the more he acts like that, the more likely that is going to come true. So I don't know if there's like a way to say it differently. What I'm hearing is he has a huge rejection wound, is what I'm hearing. And so it really probably doesn't, I mean, you can say things kindly and you can say things meanly. Um, if you say them meanly, it's not going to be as great. But even if you try to say it kindly, if their rejection wound is really, really raw, they take it wrong anyway. They take it negatively anyway. So, and I'm hearing that he doesn't have a whole lot of empathy either. So um, I was talking to somebody the other day, and the wife was saying, you made a promise that you were going to do this thing, and then you broke your promise. And then the guy went into all kinds of reasons about why he did the thing, not hearing that she doesn't really have a problem with the behavior. It was that he broke his promise. And a lot of guys can't seem to wrap their head around that for whatever reason. So it's the sense of I need you to hear me. So one of the ways to do it, and it does take a little bit of vulnerability on your part, which it may not be safe enough to do that, is to share with him what hurts um when this thing happens, whatever he's doing, like how that affects your wounds and what that feels like for you, and seeing if he can have some compassion for your pain. Even then, it's hard for them not to get caught up in like the justifying of their behavior. What I'm hearing is kind of from reading this is there's a lot of fear for both of you. There's a lot of fear going on. You don't know how to share with him your pain because he doesn't hear you, and so it's less likely. And then he doesn't know how to hear your pain, and so then he gets afraid that this relationship's going to be over. So this is a case where having a couples counselor might be able to help work through some of that. Hopefully he's also doing some of his own work, so he's not operating in fear all the time. But I don't know if there's like, I mean, I have cards and templates that I have couples use, but there's no like perfect way to say it. So um you could say it perfectly and he still might be defensive.
And I find it's helpful to have a conversation about this when you're not in the moment. So having the conversation about, we get into this really negative pattern. It's like I want to bring something up, so that we can talk through it and, find a mutually agreeable solution. And, it gets shut down because of this. Is there something, is there another way? I mean, you can ask him, is there another way I can talk about these things? And he may completely still shut you down, just, but it might be worth a try, just saying, how can we, navigate this? And we've talked on other webinars before too. It's like having a set time where it's 20 minutes. We're going to talk about these things. And it's not just, somebody is talking the whole 20 minutes. It's like a give and take, and we may need to table that and come back to that, but we're looking for constructive solutions for how we can get through this stuck part, and for somebody who wants the relationship to heal, they're willing to step into that space. That's what recovery is about. Eddie Caparucci talked about it again last week on the webinar. The video is on sexandrelationshiphealing.com under the resource tab. But like there are tools and solutions. But if you're, getting up against a brick wall, then yeah, professional help, may be the best option. Okay, next question. Hello, Trey and Tammy. My question is, the last few days I've been feeling close to my wife, but in a sexual way. I shared to my wife this morning that feeling. How can I know if the addict or the man in recovery that wants to be close to my wife? I do feel the rejection from my wife, but I have to ask her if it would be okay to be close to her. I'm going on 2 years sober and working my STEPS program, and I do daily check-ins with my wife along with 4 meetings a week. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, dude. So we are sexual beings. So the challenge with sexual addiction, and the betrayal that happens with it is it taints and darkens what can be a really beautiful experience between partners. And so then a lot of shame and a lot of stuff kind of gets woven in there, and lots of fear around that. But down that part of who we are sexual beings, and learning how to use that in a way that's healthy and invites connection and those kind of things. So I love that you are having those feelings, and I would imagine it's really, really scary to tell that to your wife. I remember hearing a story of a man who one day he was in the closet and he saw his wife getting undressed, and he really felt like she was beautiful, and he usually would suppress that. And he said to her, "Oh my gosh, you are so beautiful. I could just make love to you right now." And she said, that ain't happening right now. We got this in the morning, we got kids to go to school and all of those things." That was a really vulnerable thing for him to say, but it was his truth. And he also was able to recognize and not take that as rejection, that she was speaking her truth. So she's like, "Thank you. Like, that means a lot, but that's not happening right now." He was able to honor his truth, and she was able to honor her truth, and neither of them took it personally. And that's what a healthy partnership can do. So you could say to your wife, "I am feeling really affectionate. I'm afraid that maybe you're not quite ready for that yet. And I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but I really have been feeling some really wonderful feelings for you," and having dialogue about that. Having sexual feelings for your partner it does not mean that it's maladaptive. When we start to objectify, when we see the person as an object rather than as a human, when we start focusing, well, it's just all about me and not about the other person, and I just want what I want, and I don't care what the other person wants, that's when it starts to creep into some of that addictive behaviors, because we're in that place, we're just trying to numb our own pain. We're not trying to connect. And use this as a connection experience. So those are my thoughts. What are yours, Tammy?
Yeah, no, I think that's all great. And I love that you're saying communicate it, like, I think like, it's such a scary topic, and people just like, go in their heads and, have this whole narrative about what they're thinking is going to happen or whatever. And I'm going to get shut down and like, have the communication. And it's the hugest vulnerability, of being willing to tell you my truth and and put it out there. And that's what real intimacy is, not not just sex. So we've talked before, and in fact Dr. Rob and I talked about it the other day too, is like sensate focus. Like, can you like, if you're just reintegrating this and it's really scary, are there other ways that you can do it? It isn't just about sex. Like all of the dating steps, the beginning things, holding hands, I mean, like whatever foot rubs, whatever it is that's going to be, a safe place to start and to work towards that and build some comfort. But I love that, like, I love hearing your recovery journey. You're doing, I mean, yay, 2 years sober and working the steps and J Lee check-ins at 4 meetings a week. Like, how much better is that than the one that was like, he won't do this and he won't do that,
Right.
and now you're looking to be, really close to your wife. That's what this is all about, is being connected with real people. So okay, PA spouse. First therapist said he isn't an addict, just a victim of years of trauma and abuse. He stopped seeing her. Second therapist said he needed skills. Neither is a CSAT. That I could tell that. He claims he no longer desires to look at porn, but he smokes pot constantly for pain and says and is drinking more. He refuses to take the addict label. He still speaks to me like one. How do I handle this?
So it's probably true that he does have years of trauma and abuse, because most people who are struggling with addiction do have a lot of trauma, and that's what they stumbled on their drug of choice for, is it helped numb all that. And he probably does need some skills to learn how to do some of that. So that's not that those therapists were wrong. What I'm hearing is that he has transferred his addictive behaviors from porn to alcohol and smoking pot, which when we're struggling with addiction, we can tend to do. We can move it from one thing to the other because we're not really dealing with what's underneath that, which is a ton of pain. And you know, I don't get so caught up on the label of an addict. When you go to a 12-step meeting, they say, hello, my name's so-and-so, and I'm an addict. And I think there's reasons why they do that. I think are sacred, but um, in truth, that's not who we are. That's the behavior we engage in. We are humans with light and love and gifts and talents, but we get trapped. Our brains have learned these maladaptive ways of dealing with pain that have become so chronic that is our go-to, and we haven't learned anything else. And that is what addiction is. I'm using a substance or a behavior to numb my pain, and the more that I do it, my life starts to fall apart. What I'm hearing is that he's in denial about how his behavior is impacting you, how his behavior is impacting him. If he's drinking and using pot, I'm wondering how that's affecting his ability to work, or what his relationship is like with other friends and family members. So how you handle that is getting some support for you. We have lots of resources at Sex and Healing Relationships for partners who are a lot of them are in the same boat, so that you don't feel so alone. We have many free support groups that are running every day for partners. There's other support like We Tonglen for partners as well. There's lots of resources that you can start to utilize, so that you, number one, don't have to feel so alone. And you also don't have to feel powerless. At the end of the day, you can't twist the guy's arm and make him do something he's not willing to do, but you can connect with your own truth and remember that you are worthy of love and belonging, and you have the right to be able to make some choices that are in your best interest. And it's easier to do that when you don't feel so alone.
And you aren't alone. I know it feels like you are, but I put in the chat, on Seeking Integrity, the next Betrayed Partner group from a Prodependent Lens work group, 6 weeks long, 90 minutes, live facilitated, and it will help with, communication and healthy boundaries. And that one starts on October 6th. I highly recommend that course, but I'm thinking healthy boundaries, for your safety, your physical safety, your financial safety, emotional and spiritual safety. What do you need? I'm like, if somebody's using a lot of pot, like, is he working? Is he how much is that taking away from the family finances? All, like, that's just one little aspect, but it's okay. It's okay for you to go, when you're doing that, I don't want to talk to somebody who's stoned. So, I'm going to not talk to you when you're in that space. And it doesn't even, it's not an argument. It's just like, I'm taking care of me, and you go over there, I'm going to do this. And if you decide you want to be in a relationship with me and connect, then, this is what I'm looking for from a partner. So, I personally found the addict label incredibly helpful, because otherwise I was freaking nuts. And so to have somebody go, oh, you're an addict, and this is how your brain thinks, and here's how you can live life in a really good way and not be stuck in these little patterns. And I did the same thing. It's like I was doing this one, and that, but then I was doing that, and then I would have just kept going. I mean, until and unless I address the underlying issues. So gratefully, I got the help that I needed, because if a little is good, a lot is way better in my world. So I mean, that's how my brain thinks. It still thinks that way. Now I just have a lot more tools to use to go, that's not really true, and balance and everything, and it's a lot of different self-talk now. So okay, next question. Betrayed spouse in COSA, and I'm an adult child of parental SAPA. Can you do a brief walkthrough of finding peace worksheet surrounding chronic staggered porn discovery? Oh, suspected infidelity and gaslighting. Those events are causing me to have intrusive body performance shame, rage, isolation, sexual dysfunction, female hypersensitivity, and aclimactic and emotional intimacy resistance. That's a lot. Okay,
It
so
is.
unpack it.
All right, we're gonna do our best. Okay, so it always starts out with the facts. And when we do the facts, this usually 1 or 2 sentences. That's it. So facts are things that I can see or hear on a camera. So I'm just going to use the content that you have. So it sounds like you've discovered that he has been viewing porn for a really, really long time. You're not sure whether or not he's cheated on you, but even if not, a lot of women feel like looking at porn is cheating. So, but you're not sure about that. And you also have experienced that he will say things to minimize the experience and try to make you feel like you're second guessing yourself. That's the gaslighting part. So the facts are you've discovered that he's looking at porn. So when that happens, what wound does that stir up for you? I would imagine it stirs up betrayal. It may also stir up loss and rejection and neglect. So it could stir up a whole lot of them. Probably the primary one is betrayal, that this person is not who I thought they were. In that moment, when that wound gets hit, it will automatically activate some negative core beliefs about ourselves. And there's 3 genres. So I am, so it's about me. I'm not enough. I'm flawed. I'm defective. I'm not pretty enough. I didn't do this enough. I didn't do that enough. So it's this sense of deficiency. It also activates my finger don't work that well. Trust, which is I can't trust him. I can't depend on the things that he says anymore. I'm not sure that I can ever really believe what he has to say anymore. So that becomes a core belief. And then powerlessness, which is there's nothing I can do. That I'm powerless to do anything about this situation. That's like there, no matter what I do, it's not going to make any difference. So it could be all 3, it could just be one. So part of that is recognizing, okay, what are the core beliefs that are being activated? Because it's not necessarily the wound that causes this problem, it's what we've come to believe about ourselves. So if I'm not enough and I can't trust him and there's nothing I can do, well, I'm really, really in a dark place then. You know, I'm kind of doomed to do that. So then we go to when that happens, we're gonna feel some feelings. I'm probably going to feel very angry. I'm probably going to feel very sad, and I'm probably feeling really afraid. Most of us grew up in homes where those emotions were not modeled very well. We didn't see how to handle these emotions and move through them in a healthy way. So we either like shove them down or we rage instead. And so a lot of times we're feeling these feelings, but we don't even know how to share it. We don't even know what to do with it. And so instead of handling it, what we end up feeling is shame. And shame shows up, especially with the partner. The 6 shadows of shame show up, and the politician says, well, don't tell anybody. If you tell anybody, they're probably going to think you're crazy, and they're probably going to think that you're dumb for staying with the guy, and they're probably going to think that your husband's creepy. So don't say anything. So we got the politician that's talking, the judge is saying, well, if you hadn't done this and this and this and this, then he wouldn't have done that. And so it's all your fault. And you got to try to be a better wife, and then it would be better, and all those things. The impotent one shows up and says, well, there's nothing you can do. And you just probably need to just accept that your life is over and it's never going to get any happier. And then the royal says, I don't deserve this. You don't deserve this. What kind of crap is this that you're having this happen? And then the who's left, the martyr, says, well, you got to rescue him, you got to take care of him, this is all on you, you got to fix it, you got to fix it. And then the rebels like, screw this, like just go do whatever you want. So all 6 of them usually are showing up, which is really overwhelming. And so we learn how to work through them and recognize that really all of them are saying, you're hurting, you're in a lot of pain, you're scared, and you don't know what to do. And as we do that, we can recognize that the way that I sometimes cope with all that is through numbing. So I rage and I yell and I scream, and I isolate, and I notice that my body is doing some funky stuff. And then that makes me feel really, really not happy. My emotions mutate and I don't feel good. So as we're working through that, then we get to the truth. Well, what is the truth? Well, the truth is I'm actually hurting, and I am enough, and I matter, and I am worthy of love and belonging. And I can't control what he does, but I do have choices. I can make choices that are in the best interest of myself and in the best interest of the people that I love. I can find healthy ways to get my needs met. I can do some things to care for myself. I can reach out to others to get some support and have them love on me. And as I do that, what are the choices that I can make that are going to be in my best interest, that will get me the outcome that I want? And so that was a really fast way of doing it. But as we get to that place, then I now recognize I can make choices that are going to serve me. And when I do that, it goes all the way back to just feeling like I am enough, that I'm worthy, and I can do this. Even if he chooses not to do anything, I can do the work I need to do, and I am enough. How's that?
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. So now I mean, if you guys are newer to this, now you know why I love this work and love the work that you've created, Troy. So yeah.
By the way, that's what I do every other Thursday, like the first and third Thursday or whatever it is, with the partners. I walk through that with them, and then every Friday I walk through the people with addiction, the guys. Every every Friday we do that with somebody. So
on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. So check out the schedule because like those are free. Those are free. It's not therapy, but man, oh man, it's really useful things. And just to be reminded, I am enough, and I have a choice. Like unpacking it to what is the truth, because like all of those voices get things so convoluted. It like, and I hear what you're saying is like, I've been gaslit, well, so you've had somebody else with their voice telling you for years, decades, maybe, like, oh, you're not enough. And oh, if you only did all of these things, and that's not true. Not, there's nothing that a partner did or didn't do that would, that is the reason or, the excuse for an addict acting out. It's their brokenness. Now, as we, talked about a little while ago, there are people that don't want to change. And then there was somebody that was like, I've been doing this work for 2 years and I'm doing, like, they're doing the right things. And look, their life is changing. But you getting support to hold your truth, the truth is really important. So, okay. I just want to know when my SA is going to feel safe enough to connect sexually. He has objectified me so long, I don't know the difference. This feels like going right back to the truth. What is the truth?
yeah. So there are three phases. I think Rob interviewed her for the life of me. All of a sudden, um, I can't think of her name.
What's the topic? Tell me and I'll figure
Uh,
it out.
so she has written two books, The State of Affairs and dang, now I'm gonna go look it up. It's faster that way. Um, let's see. Um, man, all of a sudden my Esther Perel. Did he interview
Oh,
her?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think he did. So yeah.
Okay. Esther Perel. She's a marriage and family therapist who does a lot of work with partners or couples who've had affairs. And she identifies that there are three stages of working through the recovery. The first stage is very similar to what we do with CSATs and those people do, which is that full disclosure process, helping the person understand what really happened, all those kind of things. And the second stage is learning how to take a look at what what was the role that both partners played in this? Because it's really easy to just blame the addict for all of this, but there are things that the betrayed partner also contributed to it. It's really sensitive and it's not about blame. It's like, well, what part did I play? Did I choose to ignore this thing? Did I really not know? But part of that is exploring the dynamics that happened in the relationship. And as you're doing that, you're saying goodbye and you're grieving the old relationship and you're laying that to rest. And then the third is learning how to create a brand new relationship with your partner and exploring things that maybe y'all didn't explore before. There's a lot of work that happens before we get to that stage, right? And that's kind of what you're saying is like, I don't know. I'm I don't know if I feel safe. And so part of that is, well, bring it up, talk about it. How does he react? Does he get all defensive and mean, or does he go into a place of empathy and compassion and say, yeah, I'm scared about that too. Like, I can't tell you how many men I work with who are really worried that they're objectifying and they don't know. And so they're like, am I doing it? And they almost get obsessive about that. And so part of that is like learning how to be in this moment and do you see me? And there's a lot of exercises that sex therapists can help couples through to just be present. Let's just be present. Just sensate focus, like you talked about a few minutes ago. Like, let's just hold hands and just notice what that feels like, what goes on in your body and what feels like in my body, those kind of things. So slowing it down, being open and talking, because oftentimes that never happened before. There was so much shame around that it couldn't happen. And so learning how to be open and playful around that, and recognize that this might take a little while, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it is. So Dr. Rob did a podcast also with Bill and Ginger Bercaw, Bercaw. Now, their book does have good information. It uses codependency because that's what it was out there at the time. So, take what you need and leave the rest. But, they talk about, there's a workbook on how to kind of reintegrate after there's been betrayal. So that can be, a helpful thing. I do think that sensate focus, like you said, slow everything down, take it back to what is comfortable. Talk about, like, I'm comfortable with this and I'm not so comfortable with that. So, I really think a lot of it is, and you talked about what is the partner doing? Like, I see, and this is completely not in the addiction. I've got, there's a situation that I'm, it's in my orbit, and it's got nothing to do with addiction, but where one spouse is has fear and is part of the aging process, and is being, grumpy would be kind, being, volatile and angry is a better way of putting, and I get that there's the fear, but then it's, there's this whole manipulation and all of that. So, I'm trying to support the other one to go, I don't deserve to be treated this way. And I think it would shut down the other behavior. So I think that there are some things where sometimes the partner just needs to stand up and say, I am worthy. I deserve to be treated with respect. So I want to, engage and be connected with you. Here's what I'm comfortable with, but I'm also not okay with being, objectified or being mistreated, gaslit, whatever. So, but all of this is, I mean, just think about, like, most of these couples, this has been patterns that have been going on, for a long time. So stopping this, and being willing, I appreciate that you're willing to look at, how do we do this differently? That's where it starts. Lots of people never get help. This, I know this. Lots of people never engage in this because it's just easier to go through, the rest of their lives doing the same, problematic things. And that's sad, but it's also choices. So I appreciate that you're here and that you're asking the questions. So we're out of questions.
Well, one of
So
the,
anybody have some questions?
yeah, as we're,
Oh,
so part of, I was reading, Don Miguel Ruiz wrote a book about love. I can't remember the name of it. And he says, really, there's two emotions that drive us. One is fear and one is love. And when we are operating in fear, we do a lot of things to protect ourselves and defend ourselves and those kind of things. And I look at it with attachment wounds, and it's like, I'm scared. I'm really scared that I'm going to get hurt again. I'm scared that I'm going to be vulnerable again. And so that fear is what drives our behavior. And then there's love. And love is love for me, love for you, love for the world. And that's a really vulnerable emotion. But when we operate from that perspective, it actually makes it easier for us to have boundaries. It makes it easier for us to say no, in a way that is healthy, not fear-based. So as that's something I've really been kind of sitting with, and like, am I in this moment right now, and in the behaviors that I'm engaging in, is it because I'm afraid, or is it because I'm feeling love? And I've been introspective around that, and saying, okay, and if I'm afraid, it's okay that I'm afraid. My judge could say, well, you're horrible because you're afraid, but really it's like, okay, what am I afraid of? Can I vocalize that? And can I say that in a place of love? Can I have love for the fact that I'm afraid, or am I just going to get defensive? So
So this person adds, I can't help but take your comments personal when you only know parts. And then she added, I recently discovered he was having an affair instead of what I thought. Would that make me angry? Yeah, I mean, like I hear so often from partners, they go, he was only watching porn, and I'm like, go get an STD test. Anyway, I like do not believe the addict. You know, they will lie and minimize, and so it's this is part of addiction, is that you know it's why there's a formal therapeutic disclosure after you've worked with proper therapists and all that, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard the addict go, oh, she knows everything, using he and she. No, they don't. I mean, the addict doesn't even have the ability to know everything, because they've been lying to themselves, for years or decades as well. So I'm really sorry that you had additional discoveries, and I'm really sorry, but even with what you now know, I mean, there could be more. I mean, that's what the whole recovery journey is, and you working with qualified professionals and doing a formal therapeutic disclosure if he's on a recovery journey. I it pains me when I hear, oh, we've had multiple formal therapeutic disclosures. That's not the purpose. This is not a rinse and repeat. This is, you do one so you set a foundation of recovery. But I go back to your question, like if you're still in the distrust and angry, which is completely understandable, why would you want to be sexual with this person? Dr. Raba often is saying, why would you be, in fact, he said it on Monday night, why would you have sex with somebody you don't trust? And it would, or he'll say, would you have sex with somebody you don't trust? No. Like, if you just a random person on the street, no. Boy, this person has betrayed you and has not, from what you're sharing, and I know it's just snippets, yet shown you that they are on a different path and willing to be trustworthy. So at some point, like, what do you need for you to see that he's in a different place? So, Troy, thoughts?
No, I'm hearing that you're hurt, and you're looking for answers, and if I contributed to that, I apologize. We're talking about we when we're hearing these things, we don't know all the story. I just want you to know that you are worthy of love and belonging, and you are worthy of saying no if it doesn't feel safe for you. And hopefully your partner is behaving in a way. Stephen R. Covey said, you can't talk yourself out of a behavior. You can't talk yourself out of a situation that you've behaved yourself into. Only behavior will get you out of a situation you behaved yourself into. And so addicts will say stuff, but I got to see your behavior. I got to see you doing things different to help me know that I can be safe. So,
Okay, so the next question is, I told my PA spouse I forgave him, but I could not forget, especially the weaponization of my past trauma. Now I'm struggling to be close to him because he still places so much emphasis on sex and marriage, even using the Bible to support his needs being met. I'm trying not to focus on the past, but no, the past is a predictor of the future. I don't want to go through this a fifth time. Fifth time. My therapist suggests no couples therapy because of the emotional abuse. How can I explain my pain?
yeah, so if we do see that there's abuse, a history of abuse, I'm reluctant to go into couples therapy because it it's an opportunity for couples to be vulnerable with each other, and there has to be safety in order for that to happen. We got to pump in a lot of safety. And if he has weaponized your trauma in the past, and that maybe he's not doing that anymore, but if he has done that, I can imagine why the therapist is cautious to recommend that. What you're saying is, well, how can I let him know that I'm still hurting? And it really does go back to, is he able to hear that with compassion, with ownership of how his behaviors have impacted you without shame, and then not using that against you later on. And if you don't believe that he is capable of doing that yet, then you take that pain to groups and you share that with other people who can understand that. It's unfortunate and it makes me sad. It makes me sad that he's using biblical principles to try and justify his behavior. I would imagine that does not make you feel safe either. And to me, there is a difference between forgetting and forgiving. I can forgive all the resentment and anger and no longer carry that. And yet I still remember that the things you did were painful. And so therefore, I'm not going to open my heart as much as I used to. I may still love you and have compassion, but I'm not going to trust you. And that's okay.
Yes, and there's lots of Bible verses that talk about what he's supposed to be doing. So so yeah, I hate when it's weaponized. And I'm really sorry. Okay, next one. To expand on the worksheet question, we have a therapeutic disclosure with both CSATs in a week. He has stopped working. Oh, he has stopped working a program. How can I manage a shame spiral for myself during disclosure? And am I risking re-injury going forward with a disclosure, knowing he's not healthy?
Well, okay, there's a couple things. If he's gonna be, so the full disclosure is for you. It's helpful for him too, but it's really to give you as much, hopefully all of the details as possible so you can make the decision that is in your best interest. And so part of it is he going to tell you the truth? Like, how open is he going to be? When you say he stopped working a program, I don't know if that means he's like not going to like groups and stuff anymore, or if he stopped going to therapy. Because if he's stopped going to therapy, I'm not sure how the full disclosure thing is going to be pulled off. But um again, part of what I want you to be able to do is like recognize how much shame is saying that what his behaviors are saying about you as a person. And I want you to hear that it's, I mean, I know it feels that way, but it's actually not saying anything about you as a person. That his behaviors are saying everything about him as a person and what he's dealing with in his own stuff. You are worthy of love and belonging. You are worthy of the truth. You are worthy of having somebody who's gonna be honest with you and have integrity and those kind of things. So that being said, full disclosures are really painful. They're really painful for the person reading them, and they're really, really painful for the person who's hearing them. And even when a partner thinks that they know everything, even when the addict says, I think that there's nothing in here that's going to be a surprise to you, inevitably there's always something that's a surprise and there's something that is painful. So what I would hope that your CSAT is making sure is happening is that you have some support, that you have some people that you can turn to afterwards, that you know that you're not alone, because it is going to be triggering and it's gonna spike some of that shame. Journal about it, meditate, use your higher power, reach out to others, use your CSAT, so that you're not having to do this all by yourself, because trying to battle the shadows of shame all by yourself is nearly impossible if you haven't practiced for a while. So hopefully that's helpful.
And I would encourage you to really talk to your therapist about is this a good time to do the disclosure? So like make sure that your therapist is, fully aware of where things are so that your therapist can support you with that aspect of the process. So there may need to be a delay. So I don't know. But please talk to your therapist about that. So we are out of time. So thank you everyone for joining us. So grateful for all the great questions. And Troy, that was fantastic. We'll see you at the end of the fourth week of October.
Yep.
But Alex, Avi, Avila. I've been saying his name wrong for decades, I've realized. So Alex will be doing the 40 forms of intimacy. So he's now the first week of the Wednesday host. It's great information. So join us next week for that one. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.